Wait a minute, that's not right.
Hey Donkey Kong! Back up that truck so we can see ya!
Now you might be wondering, how did Donkey Kong obtain a vehicle like that? It does not appear in any Mario Kart game, let alone any game from Nintendo. Surprisingly, this vehicle appears in a completely different game, which can only mean one thing, that this game is also available for the PS4 and Xbox One. But, does that mean Donkey Kong for the PS4? Well, I won't spoil the surprise just yet, as this time Nintendo lent Donkey Kong to a third party to make what I deem to be an unlikely crossover. Hence the reason why DK owns this new hot rod called the Barrel Blaster, fitted with a barrel bracer, jungle tree plates, and a high-end TDI Rift engine. An engine so powerful that it can create rifts through space and time to get from point A to point B in a blink of an eye. And can't forget good old Bowser as well. He has teamed up with Donkey Kong and pilots the high-speed jet known as the Clown Cruiser, fitted with a Koopa Clown cap, green shell plates, and a turbojet Rift engine, which too warps through space and time much like the Barrel Blaster. And DK and Bowser are going to need powerhouses like those vehicles, as this game revolves around racing. Specifically, this game is Skylanders SuperChargers, Skylanders' 5th installment in the series, with a large emphasis on racing on land, sea, and air, with toys-to-life vehicles that can be played in-game and in reality. To be ready for racing, Donkey Kong puts on a yellow and red racing tracksuit, and Bowser gains some armor and a spiked warhammer. They drive their signature vehicles Barrel Blaster and Clown Cruiser respectively. These vehicles also grant them enhanced strength when they're paired up and unlock supercharged modifications, the best around and in town. I mean, just look at them. These are genuine Nintendo figures. Don't ask me why they're black and silver, I'll discuss that later. And the best part about them is that they also work as Donkey Kong and Bowser Amiibo respectively, so you can use them in Super Smash Bros as well as Skylanders. What an incredible feat of engineering, especially when you consider that they cost about the same as most Amiibo and Skylanders on the market. And nobody really talks about this crossover nowadays. But why is that? Well, I'm going to be analysing the history and why these two classic heavyweights were implemented and see the roles they play in Skylanders SuperChargers in order to give a conclusion if these figures and their debut game is worth playing, and why nobody talks about this crossover anymore, despite its unusualness, weirdness, and its absurdity. Before we can talk about Amiibo and Skylanders, let alone the topic at hand, we need to discuss another Toys to Life game that predates both Amiibo and Skylanders. What is that, I hear you ask? Even though I don't hear you at all. That is Funkeys. Hey guys, having a bit of a dilemma here. I was trying to put the lid onto my display case to show the Funkeys, but yeah, that'll have to do. Funkeys are collectible toys sold individually or in sets, such as starter packs, adventure packs, and limited edition packs. The game itself consists of you decorating your gamer crib, collecting money, and the more Funkeys you collect, the more content you unlock. Sounds familiar? Because Skylanders did similar things. Even SuperCharger allows you to decorate the hub world with various objects. Unlike Skylanders, Funkeys is a web game that runs Adobe Flash 9. Remember Adobe Flash? Me too. Plus, you can visit your friends' crib or meet random players like in Habba Hotel. Of course, you need the starter pack, as it requires the basics to start playing, such as Funky, aka the Portal of Power,
Yo, a little help here? I'm stuck in the casket at the ugly cemetery.
Installation disc, and 2 Funkeys to get you started. The installation is very counterintuitive, as Windows XP would likely trigger the Found New Hardware wizard, which does not install the drivers needed, and to make matters worse, the Funkeys installer seems to do weird stuff and will require you to unplug and plug in UB a few times. Plus it says to quote unquote ignore Windows found new hardware wizard and will automatically close, even though that wizard will likely obstruct the installer, making it confusing as you could get distracted like I did. So why couldn't the installer close the wizard as soon as opposed to disappearing at a 50% installation? Aside from that, UB Funkeys works straight away. To play UB Funkeys, UB Funky needs to be plugged in. If you want to switch characters, place your desired Funky onto UB, and there's a 90% chance that you'll play as that Funky. This is very dodgy, and even out of the box, they have a tendency just to, well, break. I just have to point, because I want to, like, talk to him. Why is, like, ominous music playing? But hey, I'm him! I don't care about any ominous music. I'm that guy. Oh, something wrong with your Funky. Can you check it for me? Okay. Right. Oh, what the heck? Oh no, I'm being adopted. What? Help! Help! I'm being robbed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, I'm sorry. Seems like you've just been taxed.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It seems you've just been taxed by one of Master Lox's evil henchmen.
Not even 20 minutes in and this happened. I believe it's because the UB Funkeys use these gold-plated contacts. If the figure is slightly tilted on UB, has dirty/damaged contacts, is improperly placed on UB, or at completely random times, that error appears. Keep in mind, I did not even touch the figure in the recording, and yet it still didn't like that. Skylanders, on the other hand, uses near-field communication chips, something I'll discuss later, to ensure that this does not happen during gameplay, and to make the simple task of placing the figure onto the portal as convenient as possible, and to ensure the game does not randomly cut out during gameplay, because that won't be much fun. Another problem I had while playing is the lag. Each time you click to move, the game first calculates the path that the Funky needs to take to get there. And for some reason this hogs computer resources, to a point that the game starts freezing and runs at 1 FPS when you repeatedly click somewhere. You might be thinking to yourself, well, just get a good computer. To that I say, this computer was saved from my father's workplace, and this is the kind of computer you'd use around the release of UB Funkeys, and it is very capable of running 3D games like Hype the Time Quest and Sonic Heroes at 60 and 30 FPS respectively. But UB Funkeys? Oh well, might as well just get an RTX 5080 just to play Club Penguin, because other reviews from 2010 complained about this issue as well. But before we move on, I need to point out that the title of that review was called An Idea That Would Have Worked But Sadly Made by the Wrong Hands. Plus, that review was made 1 year before Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, so I believe that Duker 2 is onto something, especially when you consider the fact that on April 14th, 2010, he found out he was psychic, as he predicted an earthquake that occurred in China. Alright, moving on. In 2009, Activision picked up the Spyro franchise. They initially planned Spyro's reboot to be a very edgy game. Let's appeal it to kids over 60 and up, and to young adults. Let's make it tough and bloody, said Paul Ricci, former creative director. That idea did not last for very long, as the team believed that it radically deviated from what Spyro is. Then, Activision expected something innovative and new, so several concepts were passed around. Activision Toys for Bob eventually decided to make a game which is Toys to Life, in a similar manner to UB Funkeys, where Spyro and his friends explore various dungeons,
Bye, have a great time.
collecting any loot, bashing any baddies in the process, and having to solve various puzzles which block their path. This Spyro game ditches the collectathon formula which is known for, in favour of a hack and slash title like Diablo. But some enemies and or bosses in Skylanders can all be taken out in a certain way, which the player has to figure out by studying their behaviours. This was a very risky move, but it turned out to work in their favour, with Skylanders receiving several sequels and a ton of merchandising as well. Not long after the release of the Nintendo Wii U, Nintendo developed Pokemon figures with NFC chips, which call for their respective figures to be in-game. The whole gimmick was that you were able to buy red and white capsules that resemble a Pokeball, and each contained a random Pokemon in them, much like toys from a Gashapon machine. Although that concept didn't stick around long with Nintendo, as they only had 18 unique figures, which were all frail and easy to break apart, became very difficult to find as of late due to limited supply, and were only meant for Pokemon Rumble U, an eShop exclusive for the Wii U.
Why'd you take down the eShop, Nintendo?
A year later they introduced Amiibo, larger figures which represented a video game character from the Super Smash Bros. Fighter roster. Exactly like the Pokemon NFC Figures, but can be used in a diverse amount of games, and offer rewards ranging from exclusive cosmetics like the Silver Mario and Mario Maker, the Metal Mario theme, or unlocking exclusive characters like recruiting Marth in Fire Emblem Fates, neither of which can be obtained without owning their respective figures. They can also read and write much like Skylanders, meaning you can train them in certain games to make them stronger, like in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS and Mario Party 10.
Fantastic!
Amiibo was an overwhelming commercial success, with stock infamously running out within the first month of the first wave. To cash on the excess, Reggie Fils-Aimé, former president of Nintendo of America, said we'll see 2 unexpected guests coming to Skylanders SuperChargers. Turbocharged Donkey Kong and his vehicle Barrel Blaster became a feature figure that came with the starter pack for Nintendo Wii U, and is also sold separately, while Hammer-Slam Bowser and his vehicle Clown Cruiser came with the starter pack for SuperChargers Racing for the Wii and 3DS, and was also sold separately. Of course, it wasn't long until I managed to get hold of both of them and their signature vehicles. Before I delve into the reason why Donkey Kong and Bowser were picked, I want to briefly recap their roles and personalities. Donkey Kong is a brown-furred ape who resides in the Kong family and loves nothing more than bananas. He is canonically the grandson of Cranky Kong, an aged Kong who spent his youth capturing Pauline and taking her to a construction site just for, well, Jumpman, who became Mario, to end his fun. But nowadays he's seen rambling. Donkey Kong himself has also kidnapped Pauline a few times, and thus developed a hatred for Mario as well. Their intent in abducting Pauline is never explained, but they usually do it out of resentment or anger. What is known is that Cranky did this on a regular basis. Donkey Kong is also known for fighting the Kremlin Crew, a tribe of reptilians or crocodiles, infamous for stealing his banana hoard. This makes more sense considering the fact he is a gorilla with a short temper. Donkey Kong uses gorilla strength to pummel foes, throw wooden barrels, and can use the animals of the jungle to help him out. Bowser, on the other hand, is a malevolent king who actively kidnaps Princess Peach due to his infatuation with her beauty. Various media depict him nearly marrying her, such as Super Mario Odyssey, and of course Mario comes back again and again to end his fun. Bowser's not a big fan of Mario either, so he establishes fortresses and castles filled with impersonators in an attempt to stop him. Bowser does not hold back when he's breathing fire, brawls, and stomps on the ground. He is also known to transform into Giga Bowser to relentlessly destroy his foes in the Super Smash Bros. Series. Before I finish, both Donkey Kong and Bowser have smaller sidekicks, Diddy Kong and Bowser Jr. respectively. Diddy gets his name from his size, with a phrase recognised as slang for calling someone small in northern England, and Bowser Jr., well, is a younger Bowser, hence the name. While Diddy Kong is often depicted in Skylanders SuperChargers, Bowser Jr. is not, probably because Bowser and Bowser Jr. are seen working independently against Mario, while Diddy is always by DK's side. This isn't always the case, but I'm speculating. So we've established that both Donkey Kong and Bowser love to kidnap women, have a mini-me, and I just learnt during editing is that Bowser 2 throws barrels like Donkey Kong, and hate Mario, Nintendo's flagship mascot. But why were they favoured over, well, Mario? In fact, Vicarious Visions, the developer of SuperChargers, were eager to get Peach. This time she wasn't your standard damsel in distress. Instead, she would be known as Warrior Princess Peach, and she would wield a sword to hack and slash her foes. To Vivi's dismay, Nintendo strictly prohibited any protagonists from the Super Mario series.
Bumper cars!
No Peach, no Mario, no Luigi, no Toad, not even Toadette, who's gained a cult following. Since Vicarious Visions cannot get what they hoped, their eyes gleam to another Nintendo franchise. Perhaps someone easy to draw, for the kids. Maybe a circle, with eyes, and of course a big smile. And hey presto, you got Kirby! But there was a catch. Not only this game had a short deadline, meaning that Kirby might have been too ambitious, also Kirby was jointly owned by HAL Laboratory. So that meant Nintendo would have had to get the rights from HAL to allow Vicarious Visions to use him, meaning that it would have taken a while and getting the rights wasn't guaranteed. While there is no info about them pitching other less ambitious characters such as Pikachu or Marth, I'm going to assume that they weren't ideal either, since they were jointly owned by Game Freak and Intelligent Systems respectively. We've been through like 8 characters now. Vicarious Visions is still struggling to pick a character. Fortunately, this game is all about racing, and you know who would be a perfect candidate? That's right, Fox McCloud from Star Fox. Or if you live in Europe, it's called Starwing in the Lilac Wars because the localized were done by Poundland and Lidl, the home of the snipers. Fox would have piloted his R-Wing to fly and shoot at enemy aircraft. However, Nintendo also declined Fox and the entire series as well, because they thought it would not benefit the franchise, because Star Fox Zero would release 5 months before SuperChargers, so it'd be counterintuitive to promote a game like that. At least could do a barrel roll in SuperChargers, so that's something, I guess. So, after some back and forth debate, the patience finally paid off, as Nintendo would eventually give them the thumbs up to use Bowser and Donkey Kong. However, what about the dark variants? Nintendo wouldn't approve changing DK's tie from red to black, so they gave Donkey Kong a nice racing suit so they can get away with colouring it black and silver. Surprisingly, Nintendo were okay with his fur being black as well, and Bowser was given armour and a Koopa shelled warhammer. Nintendo was cool with Bowser having black scales and a black shell, so long as his hair stayed red and his mouth was still tan. So, I hope that cleared up the reason why Bowser and Donkey Kong were picked. Not the typical duo who would slap their faces on a foreign franchise, but hey, at least Vicarious Visions got Nintendo's endorsement, and they managed to get Nintendo characters into Skylanders. Huzzah! Nintendo is very strict with its intellectual properties, as mentioned during the E3 announcement. They clearly want to do something new with Bow Wow and DK while respecting their legacies. This was also mentioned during the E3 announcement. As far as I'm aware, their attire is not meant to reference anything. Having Bowser in armor and Donkey Kong in a racing tracksuit was only done to keep things fresh and new, and to appease Nintendo with the dark variants. Considering that the demographic for Skylanders is geared towards younger audiences who likely have no familiarity with Spyro in the first place, even though Skylanders was meant to be a Spyro reboot since the series went on a hiatus, it would make sense to keep them engaged with new and unique content. However, there are tons of sly references like Donkey Kong Country and Super Mario 3D World which can be heard and seen in their attacks. Let's get started with Donkey Kong. Right out of the box, you place the King of the Jungle with his trusty Barrel Blaster, his signature vehicle. You'll see DK's good friend Diddy Kong, and he's just big chillin' there. He's just vibing. Diddy Kong also appears in DK's Soul Gem upgrade, where he flies around his ability Rocket Barrel Boost, which originates from Donkey Kong 64, and is used for his up special for Super Smash Bros. Diddy also shoots his foes with his Peanut Pop Gun, a wooden gun that fires peanuts, which also originates from DK64, and his neutral special and final smash in Smash Bros as well. The thing I like about Diddy in this game is that he sports a tracksuit similar to Donkey Kong. However, he does not have a dark variant associated with Donkey Kong or the Barrel Blaster, so that stinks. Donkey Kong also unlocks his Bongo Barrels as an upgrade, an attack that places a Bongo Barrel drum and which can be played to hurt enemies. Bongo Barrels also originate from DK64. It has even received a theme controller for the Nintendo GameCube with the A and B buttons for the left and right drums, and a microphone to hear you clap for games like Donkey Konga and Jungle Beat. So you too can play the bongos just like the Big Kong himself. Hey look guys, could be just like Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong can also hide in a barrel to shoot himself into another barrel, which fires him downward to slam down on foes. This harks to the barrel launching sections which date back to the good days of Donkey Kong Country, and this is a series staple. And not to mention that he too can throw barrels just like in Donkey Kong Country as well. Super Donkey Kong is a temporary transformation for DK, and it's one of the original ideas which Vicarious Visions came up. While it does not appear in any prior game, he can stomp the ground to cause ladders and girders to fall onto opponents, much like the introduction of the original arcade game, where he stomps with all his weight to bend the scaffolding in 25 meters to get the game started. The scaffolding retains its original colours and general shape from the arcade game, while being represented as 3D models. And my favourite thing has to be the fact that the Barrel Blaster is in fact a modded minecart. The significance being that minecarts have become a staple in the Donkey Kong series, to a point that Nintendo jokingly made a post claiming that, does every video game that features a mine as a setting make you think of minecart carnage? Showing that even they are aware that this level is so freaking hard I can never do it. But yes, I would vouch that minecarts in video games are a trope that likely originated from Donkey Kong Country and DK64. So you see why I'm pleased when I realized that? Because that could be easily overlooked. Also, a few configurations for the Barrel Blaster, specifically the Kong crafted engine, may have drawn inspiration from the Barrel Train, a kart that is rarely seen in the Mario Kart series and is usually driven by Donkey Kong, and thus has his emblem on the front of the vehicle, much like what the Kong crafted engine has. And the banana coal catcher could be referencing the banana horde that Donkey Kong has. As I said before, it's usually stolen by King K. Rool, if not someone else with malicious intent. Aside from that, there isn't much else to it. I mean, the bonus stage boosters could be referencing Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, a racing game where the Kongs and the Kremlings jump into bongo drums that act like jetpacks, but I personally couldn't find any more. Now we're on to Bowser. As for the King of the Koopas, he can call Koopa Troopers at his own free will. Koopa Troopers have existed since Super Mario Bros. Not to be confused with Shell Creepers, you shouldn't step on those. They can be trodden in the same manner as in the Mario games, so Bowser can send Koopa shells flying to hit opponents from afar. One of his upgrades deploy red Koopas to fire shells that home into foes, much like how the red shells home into opponents in the Mario Kart series. In my opinion, that's a simple but clever reference. Not to mention that another upgrade gives the Koopas wings to fly like the Koopa Paratroopers, which have also existed since the good days of the Super Mario Bros. For the NES. One of the ideas pitched was to have Giga Bowser, a character from the Super Smash Bros. Series which Bowser transforms into during his final smash and in Melee's final mission. Unfortunately, Nintendo declined this idea in favour of Molten Bowser, an original idea. That is a stolen idea, as he appears in Mario Kart 8's Bowser Castle circuit, where he punches the track to slow down unfortunate drivers who drove into his flaming fists. On a serious note, I don't know if this is a coincidence, but I can tell you that Mario Kart 8 was released 2 years prior to Skylanders SuperChargers, and the designs are very similar with red hot hair and eyes and maroon skin. When initiating Bowser's Warp Pipe attack, it makes the same noise when you hear a pipe emerging from games such as Super Mario 3D World and 3D Land. Interestingly, in the Treehouse Live pre-release gameplay, it makes a standard pipe entry noise used since Super Mario Bros. Listen closely.
Which is pretty cool. Exactly, and because...
I know it is hard to hear with the background noise and the commentary, but trust me, they changed it at the very last minute. But you can still hear the retro noise when you place Bowser on the portal for the first time while choosing a driver. And last but certainly not least, Bowser was going to have his third Hammer Slam attack entailing 4 thwomps which slammed down from the sky. However, this was scrapped, and the only remnant which has surfaced so far is the development footage shown during the Treehouse back in 2015. It is possible that they're still in the game, but many people struggled to extract contents from the Wii U port, which is where the subjects of this video are. In my opinion, the development footage of the thwomps look like placeholders, as the design of the thwomps are not consistent with the design philosophy of the game, and they look like generic thwomp models, possibly taken straight from New Super Mario Bros. Wii, unlike Bowser and the Koopas previously shown. His signature vehicle, the Clown Cruiser, evidently takes huge inspiration from the Hurricane, a plane-like cart modelled after the Koopa Clown Cart that exclusively appears in Super Mario Kart DS. The Koopa Clown Car itself is sometimes driven by Bowser to wreak terror from the skies, and he has been doing this since Super Mario World. The Clown Cruiser also has the configurations Green Shell Plates, Spiny Shell Armor, and Steeled Bone, which represents the shell of a Green Koopa Troopers, Spinies, and Red Koopa Troopers. Well, I think so, as the Dark variant depicts them as all black, so I have no idea how to tell any of them apart. Besides, this one has spikes. At least the drawn depictions show the correct colours, and I was wrong about the Red Koopa Trooper, as it's in fact grey, so I don't think it's exactly referencing anything, besides Steel Bone could allude to dry bones. But the Spiny Shell Armor's blueprint shows a drawing of a Spiny of how they look in most 2D Mario games, and the mod Airship Planks references the airship levels, which are usually depicted as wooden ships with propellers. The propellers only appear when Bowser is the pilot. Also, the performance mods are filled with the brim with references. The Koopa Clown Cap is referencing the Koopa Clown Car, with identical designs and names sounding very similar. Bonsai Bill Driller is meant to be like the Bonsai Bills from Super Mario World and onward, with a wee depiction of a bullet bill on the blueprints. Dry Bone Basher is the head of a Dry Bones, an enemy which debuted in Super Mario Bros. 3, and the Royal Figurehead is the head of Bowser, typically depicted on most decorations in Bowser's establishments and on most personal possessions. Fun fact, this should be made out of wood, but the Dark Edition is made out of reflective silver metal. I don't know why, but I just wanted to point that out. The Clown Cruiser's alternative fire launches a bullet bill that varies in size depending on how long you hold the button down. The bullet bills have existed since the days of Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System, and are a series staple due to their legacy and simplicity. They usually appear from bill blasters or off-screen in airship and athletic-themed levels. And that's about it for the references. If there's any that I missed out, please let me know. I have a feeling I might have missed one or two out, but I am not too sure. Back in 2015, I obtained Donkey Kong and Barrel Blaster with the starter pack for Wii U from a local game store. Last one in stock, by the way, and tracked down Bowser with the Clown Cruiser via eBay sometime later. Once I found my DK and Bow Wow figures, I realized that I have the worst ones. Here comes Dark Turbocharged Donkey Kong and Dark Hammer Slam Bowser. They have alternative colours which can only be obtained if you bought the quote-unquote Dark Edition Wii U Starter Pack and the quote-unquote Dark Edition Wii Starter Pack respectively. I nearly forgot to mention that their vehicles are also painted in this creative alternative scheme as well. So that means Nintendo approved this as well, otherwise I won't be showing you this. I seriously cannot believe that Nintendo gives Activision the thumbs up when it comes to low effort monetization. But here we are. As far as I'm aware, there are no differences between these and the normal figures, other than their colour schemes of course, and you get no advantages with these dark counterparts other than bragging rights. The same goes for all the dark, legendary and seasonal palettes that they made for other Skylanders throughout the years. Much like all Skylanders, these figures operate using NFC, Near Field Communication. This is seen in a variety of smartphones from around 2010-2020. To keep it brief, unlike UB Funkeys which uses physical contacts, like an SD card, Skylanders use an NFC chip which is powered by the Portal of Power. Since the game is actively reading and writing data to the chip, it needs this power. Not to mention this is how Light Core and Giant Skylanders light up as well. They have translucent plastic to light up the appropriate areas and a welded light emitting diode on the chip, LED for short. Amiibos also have an NFC chip built in, and data is read and written to the chip from the current game. However, the unique thing about turbocharged Donkey Kong and Hammer Slam Bowser is that they are the only two figures to be quote-unquote hybrid figures. No other Amiibo nor Skylander can be used interchangeably, as they lack a switch at the bottom of the base. Even SuperChargers Skylanders, which use the same engine base as Bow Wow and DK, lack this switch, and the elemental effects around the base are simply molded so you cannot shift them. The thing about this switch is that it allows the figure to act as an Amiibo when the Amiibo logo shows, and act as a Skylander when the Skylanders label shows. Skylanders are specifically designed to only store the current Skylander, gold collected, its nickname, unlocked upgrades, mission objectives, current hat, and experience gained. While Amiibo, on the other hand, are designed to store set information for one game only, and what that Amiibo is. The data collected from a game can vary a lot, with the most well-known example being the attack, defense and speed stats, its level, and what special attacks it uses in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. But who's to say they don't work in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate? All four figures are Nintendo endorsed. They are inscribed with licensed by Nintendo, and copyright Activision 2015, and copyright Nintendo 2015. No other Skylander has this inscription. Every other Skylander simply has the copyright Activision and the year of its debut game alongside its model number. Can't bin the Skylander.
Right, don't put it in the wheelie bin, they say. How about this then?
Made in China, its element and CE marking. The CE marking might only be applicable for European manufactured Skylanders, as CE marking shows that the product complies with EU safety and is allowed to be freely traded within the European market. But I don't know that for a fact. Amiibo are also inscribed with the copyright details of the IP owners, usually Nintendo with another company. With the model number, no bidding, and CE marking, which Skylanders have as well. Compare that to UB Funkeys, which simply has the model number and no reference to Mattel, the owner of UB Funkeys, nor Radica Games, who made those toys. I nearly forgot to mention that since the Barrel Blaster and the Clown Cruiser are not Amiibos, they do not have the Amiibo inscription, even though they're both marked with copyright Nintendo 2015. However, I need to point out that the customization options for Nintendo vehicles are very limited, to a point that the only setting which can be changed is the boost, and I can only speculate it is due to the limits of what Activision can do with Nintendo's intellectual properties, as most other vehicles allow the option to give it a new paint job, add neon lights, add antenna toppers, even though why would you have that on a race vehicle? Oh well. I shouldn't think about that too much because Activision was likely not allowed to alter any of the designs without Nintendo's permission, even including adding toppers and changing the colour scheme. And I nearly forgot to mention, since these four Skylanders are owned by Nintendo, Barrel Blaster, Bowser, Clown Cruiser and Donkey Kong, they will only work with Nintendo ports of Skylanders SuperChargers and subsequent games. While they work fine in its sequels Skylanders Imaginators for the Wii U and Switch, using them on non-Nintendo consoles or in Supercharger prequels will result in the game showing an error that the toy is broken or not compatible. It's all nice and good that they respected the legacy of two very recognisable characters while keeping it fresh and new to be more appealing to the audience, but I've spent nearly 13 hours collecting gameplay footage of solely these two because we're gonna see if Skylanders SuperChargers can be beat with only Bowser and Donkey Kong. My man! I do hope this isn't a long game. Before starting, we are given an option to set the game's difficulty, from beginner for younger players who just want to enjoy the story, adventurer for players who just want an experience that is fun and challenging, expert for older players who want their skills tested, and nightmare only for the most advanced players of the vast army of Skylanders. You know, as they say, press A to doubt. Upon starting the game, we are greeted with a luscious fantasy world known as Skylands. Just kidding, the game starts in an unfortunate setting where it's been seized by an evil duende called Chaos. who hates Skylanders as they managed to halt the spread of his corruption for long enough. Andy wants to reiterate that I'm the bad guy, which really reflects the intelligence of the game's target demographic. He also somehow manages to predict the series by stating that your Skylanders will be simple toys to collect dust, as he's disabled the portal of power so that no Skylander in your collection will be able to stop him. But, by some miracle, the rift that Chaos blocked has reopened, so Donkey Kong can jump into the Barrel Blaster and drive through the wormhole to get into Skylands. And check out my NFT VTuber, he looks in the direction in which I drive. Isn't that fun? Anyway, Donkey Kong manages to get himself out of the rift into Skylands and ends up in a detention center where many innocent lives are held in custody. We are specifically told to
Please avoid moving about the ship and using the jump button to vault over objects.
and
Flight attendants will be by to check on your prison cells. There is no need to use your attack button repeatedly to get their attention.
since we are told not to attack them, I thought to hide in the corner and waited for them to jump off one by one. That plan was going great until... Uh-oh, stinky poopy. Well, DK had a funny stinky poopy and stunk out the competition with his gorilla smells. This cell is guarded by a vicious troll, which good old Diddy took care of. Also, this game insists that I need to let these prisoners out. Well, I tried breaking the door down, but whoever made this door must have made it indestructible, as I've tried everything. And it wasn't until Hugo told me that the only way of opening it is by picking the lock, which had no interactivity before. Oh well, when we venture outside we find some
Big head looking thingy is gobbling up the sky.
described by Kronk. We also get a message from the late Master Eon stating that the darkness has returned and is powering the Sky Eater. Is that meant to be like the Time Eater from Sonic Generations? Oh well. He also talks about how DK's vehicle is powered by the legendary Rift engine, which is going to be the only way of stopping the Sky Eater. So Donkey Kong better put his supercharger into motion, as Hugo says that's Motley Meadows getting torn apart, with some of its people in a bit of a predicament. They can only be saved till DK grabs them with a supercharger before they get sucked into the Sky Eater. And I love these voices, they sound like me when I try and put on a voice. However, I don't like that DK is getting shelled with turrets called Iron Equalizer. Fortunately, Donkey Kong proves again that he's bigger, better, stronger too, as he takes down the competition with ease. After saving the pit crew, the game shows us that he can switch the vehicle's config on the fly, so I might as well switch to the one that looks like a train, because I think that it looks cool. And when DK escapes, he finds barriers that look like angry faces. Life must suck if all you're doing is blocking cars which are not allowed to drive through a specific piece of road. Oh well. After DK's great escape, he tags in Bowser, so Bowser ends up in a soda factory where a fish called James Prong talks about how he does not want to swim in the Pepsi water and requests us to destroy the water pump, which involves driving a sea vehicle. Mum told me that if I do all my homework she'll get me a Dark Sea Shadow for my birthday. Since that is several months away, and life's too short, I'll pass. Also, I can't get over James Prong. It's like they wanted James Pond, but realised that's a Mega Drive game, so they went with that. Bowser also discovers a bonus area, where Amy talks about a new edition of Sky Stones called Overdrive. And while editing, I found out that there's one called Snot Snatcher. The description says, "You're disgusting. I want you to know that."
You're ugly, you're disgusting, I'm gonna kill you, give me $200.
And I sure love the engaging combat as I can just watch Koopas take down the trolls and cyclopses. Keep in mind that I'm playing on the Nightmare difficulty that requires a vast army of Skylanders, even though I'm barely putting any effort in, and Bowser single-handedly takes out any of the enemies that stand in his way. Also, he's quite the dancer as well. After escaping the soda factory, Bowser finds that Moneybones' ships are intercepting the escaping prisoners, so it's up to him to jump into his clown cruiser to help the prisoners escape. And I hate Sky Vehicles sections. The few things I remember about this game is just how bad they are, as it's very finicky hitting enemies, while they can easily lock onto you. The good thing is that they barely deal any damage. The bad thing is that you cannot destroy friendly ships like in Star Fox. After the struggle, Bowser manages to free the captors and escapes from the sky despite the unlikely odds. Donglinob and Boji are now on a quest to find the Cloud Breather, to find Master Eon, who I thought was dead. Apparently he's still alive and well. It's time to switch back to Donkey Kong as this place is overrun by baby Yodas, who set up a camp with an open fire. DK also finds an enemy called Witch Pitcher. And you say that this gameplay is bad because I'm throwing for views? To that I say, I'm throwing barrels for views. Anyway, this humble villager tells DK that these gates will only open if a gong is hit. Well, I'm hitting this gong but to no effect, and this one as well. Aside from that, I found this pattern, where hitting the triangle, square, square, and circle gongs in that order will open something. Once I've solved the simple puzzle, the main gate opens, and this door plays a knockoff Zelda tune which reveals a room with a nurse hat and a bunch of gold. I find it funny that the hat is purple because they can't put a red cross, so I'm gonna pimp my NFT with it. Meanwhile, Tarzy tells DK that to summon the Cloud Breather, one must move with great speed and hit the gong before Chaos's troops stop DK. It's time for more driving sections, some of which involve combat. The combat sections are funny as DK can drift in any direction despite it shouldn't happen. Anyway, once DK has completed those sections, he hits the gong and the Cloud Breather is chased off. So we're back to Bowser to try and catch up with the Cloud Breather, and as soon as I start walking, we are greeted with another sea mission. How about no? And we have another group of bad guys to dispatch, another gong to hit. So we better give it a good slam with the ham. And it seems that Chaos's forces are persisting, so it's time for Bowser to jump into the Barrel Blaster and take out those foes to get to the Cloud Breather. And I still love my Jack Black VTuber. He can nod and roar. Well, Bowser had a good stint. It's back to Kong of Donkey, as this humble village does a very good impression of Pyro from Team Fortress 2. Probably because they are firing plungers, which took a massive hit on DK since I didn't move out the way. At least we're on the final stretch, as DK jumps into the Clown Cruiser to take down the fleet which is harming the Cloud Breather. Doing so was easy despite how daunting it seemed, and not to mention that I dropped off the bullet bill to school, which is still pretty funny. The last thing DK needs to do is ring one more gong to open the door, and we meet...
Rush Crusher.
So it seems that Beta Griffin isn't willing to let the Cloud Breather free. DK ought to take out all the enemies here, and nab the keys to break off the chains. With the chains broken, the Cloud Breather is free. We ask him to locate Eon, and he responds with...
Yes, the spirits are talking to me. Oh yes, they're coming in clearly. Ah, now they're forming into a gaseous material. I can actually see them now. The spirits are very powerful today.
And he deducted from the spit sock that Eon is in the land of the dead. We cannot access the land of the dead since the supercharger lacks the energy. We better head to the Cloud Kingdom to get the scepter that grants enough energy to allow entrance. Although there's a bit of a political disagreement since Stratosphere is using it for his own purposes. He will not listen to mere peasants, even though Bowser is a king. What? Oh well. It seems that he's created a fog of death scenario with trolls that eat clouds and become big boys. The loose tooth apparently. This was peak Spyro content back in 2015 by the way. But Bowser can become big as well to tower over those trolls. Speaking of Bowser, Uko asks him to rid the skies of the trolls, and he happily accepts the challenge. And with that, he takes to the skies the Clown Cruiser to take down transport ships with bullet bills, which I've learnt deals exactly 460 damage regardless of how long I hold down the alt fire. But look on the bright side, it was a simple mission and a job well done. Another simple objective to complete are these light puzzles, which I accomplished before I knew it. That was pretty underwhelming. To get to Stratosphere, DK has to jump back into the Barrel Blaster to make haste down to the marketplace so he can ring these doorbells that open the gate. The marketplace has also been overrun by trolls. Stratosphere has ruined the sunken whatever. I seriously don't care about those stupid sea challenges. Kayfabe off. I own the Dark Sea Shadow, so I can do those, but that is not relevant to the video, and I've lost the figure in storage. So, I am going to jump straight to the fight with Stratosphere, and I want to point out I was joking around thinking that Nightmare is an utter joke, but for some reason when he says, you know what they say, the more the merrier, he strikes down both DK and Bow Wow in a few hits. So that means I finally have to use my brain to evade the barrage of attacks he throws at me, take him down, and retrieve the scepter to power up DK's supercharger to get into the land of the dead. Back at the base, DK is expected to take out some training gremlins to prepare before heading out to the land of the dead. All DK must do is slam down with the banana slammer, and that is all of them dealt with. So we can finally head out to retrieve Master Eon, although he is held captive by Count Moneybone.
My accommodations are quite lush.
It was like a prototype Spampton with a salesman attitude, guilty of false advertising, and has a very questionable work ethic. And I am genuinely losing interest. Most of this game has just been beating enemies with little thought and strategy. The levels are too linear to mix things up and unlock the areas, and most puzzles entail carrying explosives, and that is not much fun. But hey, at least when DK is driving, he does not have to do those puzzles. Excuse me, what? Even while driving, I am expected to carry explosives. This is becoming very dull and annoying since most of them are just very simple. But hey, at least they have sneaking sections now, even though the penalty is non-existent, as they open fire for 3 seconds and then it's back to normal. At least the Sky mission mixes things up, as DK has to save refugees with the Clown Cruiser, and this time he gets shot non-stop, to a point that Bowser gave in, hence DK is piloting the Clown Cruiser. But back to the same old carrying and sneaking sections. But there's an end at last, which involves a driving section. Agent Softpaw says to watch out for the guards, as he's seen things which I can't unsee, even when my eyes are closed. I can relate, to be honest, especially when people show me Nintendo characters participating in adult activities. Time to tag back to Bowser, as Prototype Spampton is picking a fight. Much like the last boss, it involves driving the Barrel Blaster, which means that each hit the driver takes could make a difference between life and death. But this boss is easier, and if you evade most of his attacks, he'll be defeated, and Master Eon will be saved. So we finally save Eon, and it seems that Pandergas is flogging off his highly skilled races. Well, I don't care, as Eon talks about the Spellpunk library, and how it contains a solution to stop the Sky Eater from devouring Skylands. However, the only way to get there is for a Spellpunk to guide us there. Sharpfin old chap has his sights set on Battle Brawl Island, for Bowser to fight his way to victory, with DK's help of course. And right away we find that Frothy can change the elemental advantage to map Bowser's element. I'll decline, as that'll be cheating.
You know what they say. If you can't win, cheat.
After some exploration, Shank offers Bowser some of his beverages, which evens the odds in BoJ's favour. I bet the challenge isn't difficult, so I'm going to pass all of that and jump into the arena. And I was not surprised to find out that their interpretation of a Kirby boss was a joke, which got incinerated by Bowser, and the pirates were launched off stage by DK. So all we have left is Spell Slamzer, who looks like it was designed by an edgy 12-year-old, and stands absolutely no chance of success when Diddy Kong shoots him with peanuts and DK hides in a barrel.
When you try your best, but you don't succeed.
That'll be cheating, as it mostly entails pressing the attack button and knocking any enemies which appear— wait, what? Holy shit! That is a humiliatingly easy boss fight done with the help of Diddy Kong, and since we defeated Spell Slamzer, the organizer Shellshock forfeits him, and for some reason both Spell Slamzer and Shellshock appear in the background as well as the arena. Oh well, that's life. With the help of the Spell Slamzer, we find the Spellpunk library to do some research on how to stop the Sky Eater. However, these books are possessed, and it's up to Donkey Kong to explore these books. These books physically abduct the reader into a story in which, for some reason, are 2D platformers with gremlins that look like a thing with a sword. While some of the other books are about a team of fighter pilots, which means that Bowser must jump into the Clown Cruiser and take out enemies like in 1942. I'll give them credit for mixing up the gameplay. It's a shame that this is the only time that it is used, as I would rather play these 2D sky missions over the 3D ones, because they are better in every way possible. Fortunately, there are more 2D platforming sections in the style of Angel Island, so that's fun. With rolling spiky purple circles, okay. However, I do not approve the infinite runner style gameplay with DK and the Barrel Blaster. The only good thing about it is that it marks the end of the chapter on completion. So that means we've extracted the necessary information to stop the Sky Eater and save Skylands. First things first, we need to find Pumphrey Le Fuzzbottom, the author of those books, to shed some light on the situation. He is in Gadfly Glades, so that's DK's next destination. At Gadfly Glades, we find an otaku elf who boasts about their limited edition Wallace and Gromit mug, strange golden frying pan, big titty fate / grand order figurine, and, of course, Pumphrey the bookworm. However, she isn't willing to give him up, not without DK, who's just big chillin' in the background, to participate in a challenge, where 234 past competitors have died and failed, according to Mayor McFeety. The otaku elf also releases a collection of insects. Since Donkey Kong is about the same size as most of these insects, he has to fight his way through the infestation of bugs. She also warns to DK that some are poisonous. No wait, all of them are poisonous! And I soon found out that this game is very imbalanced with its enemies, as every enemy and boss has been an absolute joke, but these bigger bugs deal a substantial amount of damage, to a point that DK instantly dies if he gets hit more than twice.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
So he better keep his distance and not get too close, otherwise he's going to get comboed to death. And it shouldn't be too difficult. I found out the reason why there is a sky stone called Snot Snatcher, as Bow Wow encounters this insect that fires this green mucus which grabs Bowser. I believe that this is the Snot Snatcher himself.
You're disgusting, I'm gonna kill you, give me $200.
I've also found out there is a beehive with a bunch of zingers from Donkey Kong, which DK has to clear out to perform his great escape in the Barrel Blaster. And it seems that Otaku Elf has turned on the taps, so the entire place is raining despite it being a clear day. So Bowser better destroy all the faucets with the Clown Cruiser's bullet bill to stop the rain, while DK must make haste in the Barrel Blaster to save Le Fuzzbottom. However, those big bugs got the better of Dongly Knob, so Bowser was the one that saved the bookworm. I also want to point out that during the dramatic slow motion, Bowser's VTuber avatar seems to do funny things if I quickly rotate the analog stick clockwise. Nah, it's probably fine. When Bowser retrieves the bookworm, we're told that we need the Eye of the Ancients, which means we need to reenact Attack on Titan. I don't know what it's about, but I think it's an anime about really big people. And to do so, we need the quote-unquote Colossal Colonel from Captain Cluck. Would you say he's a gribber? Anyway, DK can now shrink and grow objects so he can solve puzzles by altering both size and mass of enemies and objects. Like this enemy called Hammerhead. Do you know why they call him that? Because he's got a hammer for a head. But this game is starting to really drain me, and even editing this is becoming a giant slog. One of the problems I have with this game is that it likes to whip out any excuse to keep pulling my homies into locations that are generally favoured by children, such as fast food places and toy stores. So I'm going to skip to the Captain Cluck fight. Or is that Boss Cluck? This game is so good that the names aren't even consistent. The boss fight simply involves pushing spherical chickens into those circular vents till Cluck gets hit enough so that he's done and dusted at 1 HP for some reason. And with that, we've retrieved the Colossal Colonel, and these animations are not good, as Boss Cluck or whatever clips through the birdcage of his vehicle when he dismounts, What makes it worse is that you never see him open and close the cage. It's either there or not. With the Colossal Colonel, Bowser is now able to fight those titans, and I'm amazed that this game predicted that Jack Black was going to voice act Bowser, because this has quickly turned into that movie, I think it was called Gulliver's Travels, where Jack Black grows really big and destroys buildings or something, so they have to like pin him down. I don't remember. However, he did not fly a big plane as far as I'm aware, saved birds' eggs from a hungry pet. Bowser had to do that, by the way. Speaking of the hungry pet, it is swiftly taken out by DK's broken mechanics. And I'll just say, after destroying a few more buildings, DK finally gets to Thundertoad, who has the Eye of the Ancients. However, he deals basically no damage to DK despite those random bugs being lethal. He gives DK plenty of time to dodge his attacks, so it'd make more sense for his hits to be more punishing than those bugs which instantly attack with little time to drive away. At this point, my brain's at its limit. After defeating Thundertoad, this game pulls a plot twist. That being, the Sky Eater is on his way to devouring the Academy, and everyone manages to escape at the cost of the Core of Light. The problem is that the Core of Light was the only solution to saving Skylands from the Sky Eater, so now they have to think of another solution to saving Skylands. I approve of this plot twist as it shows that chaos means business and reminds the player how powerful the Sky Eater is, and how little time they have left until the entirety of Skylands is completely demolished. However, I don't approve that this game now pulls an excuse to have a demolition derby, because Glumshanks, an important character, also got sucked into the Sky Eater. Even though the game established that the Sky Eater is a black hole, the writers decided that he was abducted by the Sky Eater to become a prize winner in a demolition derby held not long after the Core of Light got devoured. Listen closely, because I am not making this up.
Attention demolition fans! The jackpot prize for our rectacular main event has just gotten a very serious upgrade!
Huzzah! Recently dropped into our labs by a convenient rift storm, Chaos's #1 apple polisher and personal manservant can now be yours for the low price of crushing all who stand before you.
That no-good double-dealing huckster! He stole our Glumshanks!
Wow, really? Does that Pandagas also have the Core of Light as well? No! They instead used the Dark Rift engine because... I don't know anymore. I seriously cannot. Just no. Driving combat has proven to be terrible and awful. This game assumes that I'll do fine and gives me no help whatsoever. Even though the last arena fight gave me plenty of opportunity to even the odds, despite it being easy, this time I get no help. With simple enemies that instantly take down DK and Bow with a few hits. To add insult to injury, if all the Skylanders fall, you have to re-watch the introductory cutscene as the game lowers the level and starts from the very beginning. By now a normal person would have put this game in the bin, but I'm still playing and I'm going to complete this. The only way I'm going to beat this chapter is by using all my other Skylanders, as the game suddenly now proves the point that you need a vast army of Skylanders near the end of the game after it gives me a false sense of ease.
Ma, there's a weird stray cat outside. It looks like grandma the thing. Hey, get out of here.
And I switched Skylanders until I took down the dino trucks and accomplished this chapter. And I'm going to jump straight to the final boss, as I don't think I can really keep this up, since it's just the same old, no interesting techniques to overcome specific problems, only mindless bashing of baddies with the hints of flying and driving scenarios which are literally the deciding factor between the Skylanders' life and death. The only interesting thing I can tell you is that they like to rip off items from Mario Kart, and they literally copied the Crazy 8 and called it Omega, because Omega lol. The final boss is Chaos himself, who I like to call Duende due to his size. Well, until he grew in size. He is the most underwhelming final boss I've seen so far, as he stands around launching attacks that can be easily avoided and deal very little damage on the game's highest difficulty. If you told me I'm not playing on Nightmare, at this point I would sincerely believe you, since it sure doesn't feel like it with how balanced the bosses and enemies are, with bosses that deal basically no damage and insta-killing enemies.
Bruh.
There is no fun to be had, there is no risk and reward. DK's barrel launcher makes him invulnerable to all attacks as well, so there's literally no point in trying. All you do is beat up a whiny Duende as DK, when he's invulnerable. At least Diddy is there to make the fight slightly more interesting by flying around and shooting him when he shouldn't be. After the long slog, DK finally defeats Chaos, meaning that is the game accomplished. Oh wait, there's more. DK has to take down the Darkness himself, who has grown a body through the Sky Eater. And the stakes have become ridiculously high. The game drags DK into a supersonic inspired fight, where DK has to keep driving through rift surge rings, evading any obstacles, otherwise they instantly decimate Bowser or DK. And with enough hits in the Darkness, he sends DK to a new place.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Where he deploys Shadow Guardians, which deal massive damage much like the enemies in the Crash Derby. Then I thought to turn the difficulty down from Nightmare to Beginner because I cannot take any more of this. And of course the enemies deal basically no damage. I'd say it's about as much as most bosses deal on Nightmare. At least there is an end, and hearing the Darkness yell "No!" sounds like Darth Vader yelling "No" makes up for the shortcomings. And once DK has essentially rinsed and repeat those steps, the Darkness has been defeated and sealed back into the portal he dragged DK into. And at this point, while editing, DK and Bow Wow are just a gimmick. They don't provide anything noteworthy other than those Easter eggs and references. This is a lot when you consider the fact that there are 35 other Supercharger Skylanders and 33 vehicles, all with differing abilities, upgrades, and personalities. On the flip side, I will openly admit that from my experience, Nintendo guests do have the most diverse range of attacks compared to most other Skylanders I've collected. So, if you're interested in playing this, but don't own Skylanders SuperChargers for the Nintendo Wii U, I would strongly recommend staying far, far away from this. I reiterate, these figures only work with the Wii U release due to the partnership with Nintendo. While the figures themselves aren't that expensive since they both saw a standalone release with their signature vehicles, I would only recommend it if you want an amiibo of DK in a racing tracksuit and or Bowser with a hammer, or already own a Wii U and are looking to play interesting tie-ins. But don't get the dark versions like the ones I own. They are worth more money as they are exclusive to the Dark Edition starter packs, and only hurt the unique designs instead of complementing them. Aside from that, DK looks like he's wearing a black leather jacket as if he's a biker. Oh, and applying mods to them in SuperChargers Racing for the Wii and 3DS completely removes their alternative color scheme as well, making the limited edition vehicles pointless as they will not receive any stat bonuses from mods unless you remove the only thing that makes them unique. While some reviewers strongly recommend this game, I do not. Those reviews were probably made in 2015, when the Wii U was peak Nintendo technology and the Toys to Life genre was still somewhat popular. With how much of a nuisance they are to set up and keep all in storage with the Skylanders, God forbid you're one of those people who kept them in the original boxes as I did at one point. Plus, the Wii U is now retrospectively remembered as a disaster of a video game console, with the only good thing about it is that it paved the way for Nintendo Switch a few years later, and it having a great library of legacy titles, which are no longer available. Thank you Nintendo for not listening to your fan base. This is all the more reason to not play this. And while I was making the video, I noticed back in March they shut down the servers for Mario Kart 8, Splatoon, and other Nintendo games, meaning that you can no longer start online matchmaking with other players. SuperChargers servers are still running since Activision maintains them, but you'll soon find out the hard way that nobody really plays this game anymore. Speaking of the reviews, I can't get over that Skylanders SuperChargers advertised itself with the review stating, "Move over Mario Kart." So you're telling me that this game was the spiritual successor to 40 Winks? Because that game also boasted a review with a similar title, "Move over Mario," slapped right on the front of the box by the way. But jokes aside, I don't feel as addicted to playing Skylanders SuperChargers as I do with Mario Kart, since attacking other races in multiplayer isn't as satisfying in SuperChargers, and the drifting isn't as snappy in SuperChargers than compared to Mario Kart 8. But hey, if you played both games you might be indifferent. Fortunately, the same cannot be said for SuperChargers Racing. While making this video, I went to Sex, and while I was there, I found Skylanders SuperChargers Racing. Since it was only, say, 15 bucks, I went ahead and got it, and I must say, it provides a way more diverse experience, omitting everything that I hated about the Wii U version in favour of a new experience, with new missions, challenges, and significant improvements to the combat, so hitting other drivers is way more satisfying. I didn't bring it up in the video until now because I thought it wasn't anything to write home about, but I was wrong. Dead wrong. The drifting is great to pull off, and you can perform stunts on water and activate afterburners while flying. I would definitely recommend playing this game if it weren't for the fact that you need at least one Skylander, a portal of power, and a sky vehicle to start playing. Although I would prefer to get at least one vehicle for each terrain, and a matching driver, equating to 6 Skylanders. Oh yeah, this game is only for Nintendo Wii and 3DS. Despite the enthusiasm at Activision and Nintendo, Skylanders SuperChargers received poorer sales than they hoped, with its sequel receiving fewer sales than expected, with some of its competition ceasing production and support around the same year of SuperChargers. To add insult to injury, Activision was planning a 7th game, where most of the older characters would return with a more mature appearance and impression. However, this game did not make it past the conceptual phase due to them driving the series into the ground. While Nintendo kept the Amiibo magic going, I have a hunch it is only because of the Super Smash Bros. Line and Tears of the Kingdom. Hi, this is me literally a few hours just before uploading this video. I wrote a 500 word long segment of how Sora wasn't going to get an Amiibo and of how this was a sign of Amiibo painfully dying out. But guess what happened in the September 14th Direct? They just casually announced that he is receiving an Amiibo. Yeah, no biggie, it's not like the Kingdom Hearts fanbase was Kingdom Heart broken, when many viable news outlets confirmed the lack of Amiibo through data miners, as he lacks a bin file so the Sora Amiibo can operate in-game. Also, there are Amiibos of Zelda and Ganon for Tears of the Kingdom as well, which was also announced a month or so prior to that aforementioned Direct with Sora. But this doesn't mean that Skylanders is coming back. This just emphasizes my point of how Nintendo are still pushing Amiibo because of the Tears of the Kingdom and Super Smash Bros. Line of fighters, because Amiibo would have died long ago if it weren't for these games. Some believe that Skylanders died as it started to push forward microtransactions.
And certainly wants to take your money with an excess of microtransactions that kids could easily accidentally click on.
While it's a good argument, I don't think that is 100% true. One of the things I believe that was the catalyst towards the demise was that Activision's scope of Skylanders grew larger and larger, to a point that these vehicles, like Buzzwing, had unnecessary articulation and a button that makes the wings flap, as if they are commissioned to make a fun toy, not a figure to be used in game. I like the idea of spinning the wheels on the cars, as if they're Hot Wheels, but I believe when they take it that far, this might be evidence that Skylanders started to lose its purpose, and possibly its appeal. With Activision constantly increasing the scope of Skylanders each year in a desperate attempt to keep it alive, I feel it was only making the toys to life gimmickier, and thus lost its selling point, with the quality of the figures becoming way too expensive to manufacture and sell, and having Bowser DK and even Crash Bandicoot wasn't enough to save them either. Wait, Skylanders Imaginators? Crash Bandicoot? Crash Bandicoot, what have they done to you? And remember the picture that I showed when discussing Skylanders' popularity and of how it was a Skylanders Island Toys R Us? Well, reporter Eric Switzer at The Gamer published an article of why Skylanders died. One of the things he pointed out was that when Toys R Us started closing stores in 2017, it was the final nail in the Skylanders coffin. Which is very unfortunate since Skylanders was able to form a successful partnership with Toys R Us to sell exclusive limited edition figures known as Legendary Skylanders. Skylanders with a gold and blue alternative color scheme. This was a very successful partnership, and it lasted right until Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy. So I didn't make that connection, but that makes perfect sense, as Toys R Us was also losing sales around the same time that Skylanders was losing sales, and their buying director Fiona Murray Young saw the success right from the early days and capitalized on it as soon as, leading to the successful partnership. So that is a very good observation. Nice work, Eric Switzer. And that shows that not even successful partnerships with massive e-commerce stores geared towards Skylanders' target demographic wasn't enough to save them. I know that sounds unfair, but still, as they say, the numbers don't lie. The development team also thought that rebranding pre-established characters would help get the audience back, and it kinda did to some extent, but being held at higher value while shoehorning in the old figures into the game and making them utterly useless despite giving them all new driving animations.
Supercharged.
This is bad as they need to mass produce those toys, which are very expensive, not to mention that the older figures will be in toy stores for a while. And Activision insisted that Skylanders should have an annual release due to the sheer popularity and Activision's motto of annually releasing all their big budget games. These points might have been the reason why this is a dead franchise and the Toys to Life genre is not talked about as much nowadays. That's why we have a nice remake of the Spyro trilogy, which represents those classic games as if they were made in this day and age, while respecting the art style. Last thing I heard from Skylanders itself is that a mobile game called Skylanders Ring of Heroes had a revamp in 2020. Ring of Heroes is an RPG, not anything to do with Toys to Life, made by Com2 US, and released for mobile phones. And its servers have already been shut down by the time you're watching this, so I don't know what Activision is planning to do with Skylanders. They thought that turning it into those transaction heavy mobile games would be the way to go, but that didn't pan out. With Skylanders fading into the infinite depths of obscurity, you'd think that Nintendo would incorporate the designs for DK and Bowser and their vehicles in future titles, but they did not make an appearance in any game outside of Skylanders. While the Barrel Blaster is a favourite of mine, with its design hybridizing a drag racer and a motorbike while fitting a minecart in it, it's probably for the best that it does not appear in Mario Kart. Have you even considered how a thing like that turns corners? The chains need to be tight, like a car belt, meaning that the front nor back wheels cannot turn. In the games the animators were lazy, the chains clip and break visual connection with the front wheel when it turns. The lack of appearance also applies to Donkey Kong's tracksuit. Even though I see many other YouTubers talk about how they want to see it as an alt color for Donkey Kong and Smash Bros, I think the game is better not having it. Bowser's armor and warhammer does not appear in later games, and the Clown Cruiser? I don't know what is going to happen with the Clown Cruiser. Since it takes heavy inspiration from the Hurricane, it may reappear in Mario Kart Tour, if not in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's upcoming DLC. And if it does, it won't be the Clown Cruiser, it'll be the good old Hurricane, with its less aggressive expression and twin-tail design. Since I don't want to end on a negative note, I still see Skylanders being sold in various second-hand stores such as SEX. That's Computer Entertainment Exchange. It's an acronym. That's Computer Entertainment Exchange. It's an acronym. Even if they don't look like they're selling any, don't worry, because they are. This is probably stored in a box behind store shelves. Also, I went to HMV recently and for some reason they were selling Skylanders Swap Force t-shirts in the clearance section. I genuinely don't know why. That game is 10 years old and predates SuperChargers. At least HMV also sold some nice Hatsune Miku gummies. Yummy. Anyway, I have a meme that sums up the outro of this video. Newbie Funkeys walked, so Amiibo can run. And who knows? Perhaps there might be a proper reboot for Skylanders. Or there might be a new video game franchise that incorporates some other piece of technology. All I know is that Activision's CEO, Bobby Kotick, is eager to reboot Skylanders if Microsoft purchases Activision. He had hoped that Skylanders and the Toys to Life genre would thrive, if it weren't for the fact that other companies dumped their cheap and nasty alternatives. And trust me, if you thought Disney was bad, there were real stinkers on the market, such as Angry Birds Star Wars Telepods. and with them merging, he believes that Microsoft's research and technology could be incorporated to create new and exciting games. But there has been some ambiguity of the acquisition. Legal reasons, it's all boring stuff. But if Microsoft does buy Activision, there's no guarantee that it's going to be successful. And to the topic at hand, I doubt that turbocharged Donkey Kong and Hammer Slam Bowser are going to make a comeback, as this game will likely be exclusive to Xbox. One thing's for certain, that this isn't the end with strange or unusual crossovers, as Nintendo also crossed over the Blue Hedgehog and a Mischievous Lamb around the time as well. So, I hope to see you when I get around to documenting them. And I also want to apologise if I sounded unwell during the part I discussed the references. I had a bad throat and nose due to my hay fever. I started this video back in December of last year, and by the time I was wrapping this video up, it was during the summer and the pollen levels were high at the time.